also.
Now, you made an interesting comment there that, you know, you're not necessarily a great leader, which is really interesting for our viewers, thinking, how did she get on the show? Many people actually in their journey to being a leader don't feel like they've kind of got there. It's such a continuum, isn't it? I mean, when do we ever become like the best leader? And so there's so many aspects. What areas have you found the most challenging then in that journey to become a leader in this space?
What has been the most challenging? Great question. I think speaking to the decision makers in large organisations, convincing them that the problem is not their people, the problem is the system. And that's hard. The system of IT is very complex. And quite often companies buy other companies, or they get new systems, and then they don't think about the impact to people in working IT.
Yes.
And that has been my challenge, is convincing the leaders that you've got to think about the technology, don't blame the people.
I think that's a wonderful response, and thank you for being so put on the spot there and being really candid, because I think so many of you will relate to that response of, you know, it's not just being a leader in the sector. You probably go, oh, that's my bread and butter, I'm very comfortable there. It's that when you are a leader in business, it means that you have to step out of that sector because you're working with all those other businesses, departments, and often a changing space that's quite rapid sometimes. That's right. You can have an acquisition and merger going on and you're like, oh my goodness, I thought we were here and now suddenly we're changing, or no one even knows what they're doing. And so that aspect can be extremely challenging, and you learn a lot about yourself because it exposes those raw elements of insecurity, which we all have, right? Of suddenly like, well, how am I going to convince or not necessarily convince, even work or understand or give my opinion to this other person who is an expert in their area?
Exactly. And sometimes I say that, especially in IT, it is such a complex environment that you can't solve the problem. And sometimes you have to live with the symptoms. And so what you were just explaining then, Annie, yes, when I try and speak to leaders, I'm very mindful of not saying I'm going to solve the problem. Because if you want to solve the problem, it's going to cost you a lot of money.